Hello students, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In our previous video, we were discussing about the sexual reproduction. Events in sexual reproduction. We learnt that the sexual reproduction events are of three stages. One is pre-fertilization stage, second one is the fertilization stage, and the third one is the post-fertilization stage. These are the three events that are very important as the sexual reproduction is concerned. First, we'll move on to the pre-fertilization events. One is the formation of the gametes called gametogenesis. The second one is the gamete transfer. What is gametogenesis? We know it is the process of the formation of the gamete, male and the female. Usually the gametes are haploid cells. In some cases, in case of consider algae, both the gametes are similar to each other. There is no differentiation as such we can see. One example quoted here is the cladophora. These gametes which resemble with each other, which are similar to each other, are named as the homogametes. And we'll move on to the heterogametes, whereas the male gamete is very tiny compared to the female structure. That means female gamete is a bigger or a larger in size compared to the male gamete. That is one example quoted is fucus in case of algae. And then Homo sapien is another example where the male gamete is very tiny and the female gamete is bigger than that. Moving on to the sexuality in organism. Usually the sexual reproduction in organism, what we find is the fusion of the gametes will be forming two different individuals. But this is not always true. You can see the male flower here. You can see the male flower and the female flower separately. That means based on the sexuality of the organism, we categorize the plant as monoecious plants and the dioecious plants. In case of the monoecious plant, the plant will be bearing only the male flower and female flower separately, but in the same organism will be bearing it. They are named as monoecious. Best example quoted is the cucurbita family members, and also the cara will be, even the coconut also will be showing or exhibiting the male flower and the female flower. It is called the condition called the monoecious condition. Even in case of the Merkentia, what we can see that is the female thallus. The thallus is different and the male thallus is different. And here even the papaya also, male plant is different from the female plant, where the plant will be bearing a male flower and a female flower separately. This is the sexuality of these organisms. They are named as the dioecious. And then you will see flowers will be unisexual. It's named as unisexual. That means a flower with only stamen. If the flower is having only the stamen in them, such flowers are named as staminate flowers. And the flower will be bearing only the gynoecium. They are named as pistillate flower. You can see here, you can see the staminate flower here, only the stamens are seen. Here only the pistil is seen. It's called pistillate flower. And then moving on to the flower, having both stamen and gynoecium together. Best example quoted here is the hibiscus, where the stamens are seen here and here you can see the female structure, that both the structures are seen on the same flower. They are named as bisexual flower. One best example we can quote is hibiscus. So it's a bisexual flower. Even in animals also we can see the same differences. Unisexual animals are also seen. Male cockroach is different from the female cockroach. You can see the structure here. You can see this. This is the major difference between the male and the female. Females will not have this, and this is the male cockroach. Moving on to the bisexual animals, like in case of an earthworm, the condition here, Both the male and female structures are seen in the same animal. Such animals are called hermaphrodite condition. You can see the 13th segment and the 15th. Between these two segmental structure, in case of earthworm, we can see both reproductory structures. They are named as hermaphrodite. Now moving on to the gamete formation. Gametes are to be formed. In order to form the gamete, it's called the gametogenesis process. This happens only through the cell division. A haploid parent will be producing the haploid gamete with the help of a simple process called mitosis. In the case of bryophytes, you can see the haploid gametes are produced. In some plants or some creatures, what we find is diploid parent will be producing the haploid gamete with the help of a major process called meiosis. See the difference? Haploid parent producing the haploid gamete by simple mitosis, and a diploid parent producing a haploid gamete by meiosis. These two things are to be remembered. In case of higher plants and animals, we find this diploid parent producing the haploid gamete through meiosis, whereas in the lower organism, haploid parent will be producing the haploid gamete with the help of a simple mitotic process. See, next is the formation. After the formation of the gametes, it has to be transferred. So, transferring of the gamete will be different in different creatures. See, in case of the aquatic creatures or the aquatic plants, the gamete will be transferred in this medium. This is the water medium. You can see here is the water medium. The male flower having the stamens and the female flower having this pistil. Now the transfer has to take place from the male to the female structure. This can happen in the water, inside the water, or maybe it will reach the female by floating. And this happens through the medium called the hydro, that is water condition. So such what you call it as a gamete transfer is named as hydrophily. In some cases, some plants, in higher plants especially, the male flowers will be producing these stamens, and they are seen in the form of the what is known as pollen grains. These are stuck to the body of the creatures, animals or insects, and now this will transfer this male gamete onto the female gamete through these creatures. The transference of the male gamete to the female gamete through the insects are called entomophily. Then sometimes in some cases, this transfer of the gamete will also take place through the air. It's called anemophily. And in some cases, the snails will be helping in the transferring of these the gametes are named as a malicophily. Now, the gamete transfer will take place through the pollination process by insects. Then that too in higher plants. In lower organism, we can see in case of algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, what we find is the transferring will take place through the water called hydrophilus in country. Now, let us sum up what we have learnt in this class. So, we find the monoecious flowers or the monoecious plants like cucurbita. In this case, what happens? The flowers will be having the stamen, and the flower will be having the pistil separately. They are called monoecious plants. Dioecious means the plant itself is different. Male plant and a female plant. Male plant will be bearing only the staminate flower, and the female plant will be bearing the pistillate flower, like this. So, monoecious and dioecious conditions are learned. Now, moving on to the flowers, may be unisexual, as we learned at the staminate flowers and the pistillate flowers. So, that condition to be remembered. Then, flowers are bisexual, Like an example is hibiscus. Animals are also bisexual. In case of earthworm, we call this condition as hermaphrodite condition, and unisexual in case of cockroach. Then gamete after the formation through the cell division, haploid parent producing the haploid gamete with the help of a simple mitotic process, and a diploid parent will be producing the haploid gamete by meiosis. And also we learn the transferring of the gamete in lower organism and also the plants. So in lower cases, what happens? The water or air is sufficient for the transference of the gamete from male structure to the female structure. Whereas in case of higher plants, the insects, maybe snails, maybe birds, ornithophilia, we name it as ornithophilia, they are helping in the process of pollination. I hope this video will be helpful to you in learning these concepts. Thank you all.